Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to this week's Picks Against the Spread, brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. And you can check out MyBookie in the description below if you want to bet on any of these games as I talk about them, so keep that in mind. But first things first, we've got a lot to get to this week with these three huge games, so let's just jump right into it, starting with Philly at Dallas. Dallas, as of the time of me recording this, is favored by 3.5 at home. They're a much better home team than a road team. And they're also on a little bit of a streak here. They're 4-0 in their last four in terms of beating the spread. In fact, they're 4-0 straight up as well. But they're kind of starting to put it together as a team. Offensively, they've been much better. Dak has been a little bit more efficient overall. He's obviously still not taking deep shots downfield. He's not probably ever going to be an efficient deep ball passer. But when you look at last week against the Saints, for instance, when he threw 18 completions in a row, that's kind of just what this offense needs to function. Run the ball, use the short passing game, take a couple play action shots here and there. I think he only hit one of them against New Orleans. But really just be a ball control offense, control time of possession, grind it out with Zeke, and then play good defense. To me, that's their formula for winning, and I don't necessarily think that Philly can stop that formula. I really don't. Obviously, New Orleans couldn't even. But Philly's secondary has really struggled with injuries, so I don't feel like they have anybody that can cover Amari Cooper one-on-one. I don't feel like they've been consistent in stopping the run this year. They've had some games where they've done it really well. They've had some games where they didn't. But when you're going against Zeke, you really have to be a truly elite run defense to stop him. Kind of like what we saw, a little bit earlier in the year with Houston. Like that is a truly elite run defense that kind of took away the heart of the Cowboys offense. I don't think that Philly can do that. At the same time, I also feel like Dallas matches up well with the Philly offense in terms of they have linebackers that can cover in space really well against Zach Ertz, who's probably the Eagles' best weapon. They've stopped the run well as of late. They're 4 deep at corner, to be honest. Byron's obviously the best one, but they have 4 startable corners in that secondary. Xavier Woods isn't a bad free safety, so top to bottom, they're just a really, really gifted defense. And I just, when you look at the ball control formula for Dallas and the fact that I don't necessarily think that Philly has enough weapons to crack the defensive depth of the Cowboys defense, overall, I feel like Dallas is going to win by more than a field goal. I feel like they're going to cover that 3.5. Carson Wentz can make anything possible, but the more likely scenario for me is that Dallas wins by maybe 5 to 7 points instead of 3. In which case, overall, I do feel pretty comfortable betting on Dallas to cover that 3.5 spread. And that brings us to game number 2, maybe the biggest game of the week overall, and that's the Rams going to Chicago to take on the Bears. The Rams are favored by 3 here, but I'm going to be betting on the Bears to cover that. And probably, if I'm just betting straight up in terms of who's going to win between Chicago and LA, I think I would probably bet on Chicago. However, there is a caveat to that. It really depends on Mitchell Trubisky's health. If Trubisky does not play, it's no-brainer you're going to bet on LA. If Trubisky does play, I'm betting on Chicago. So as of the time of me recording this, I still don't really have an official word about if he's going to play. So, just kind of check that injury report before you put a bet on this game. But to me, if Trubisky's going, I'm betting the Bears all the way. I feel like they match up really well with that Rams defense. They can stop the run. They have active linebackers that can get to the edge and slow down Todd Gurley when he tries to bounce outside. They have a very deep secondary. They have arguably the best safety in the game in Eddie Jackson, who's playing lights out this year. He's going to shut down those seams that they love to run off play action. Overall, the Bears defense, I feel like, is one of the few defenses that I actually feel pretty decent about going up against this Rams offense. And there's not a lot of defenses I can say that about, but Chicago is definitely one of them. Also, the fact that they're in Chicago, in the cold, in the wind, on a very, let's just say, notoriously slushy field when it gets into December months in Soldier Field. The turf is famous for slowing down fast offenses because it's different than when you're running on, perfectly manicured grass in LA that's, 70 degrees. It's not as muddy, it's not as loose. Fast guys go faster in LA, fast guys go slower in Chicago. That's just how it's always been. It's been that way for, freaking decades at this point. So that is also an advantage for Chicago's defense, matching up with LA's speed. And then on offense, I feel like the Rams defense has been fairly unimpressive overall this year, outside of a few standouts. Obviously, Aaron Donald being the biggest one. Ebby Cam's had a few big moments as well. I feel like, you don't like to say that James Daniels, a rookie, is going to be able to handle Aaron Donald, but he's been really, really good for them. And I feel like, again, he's not going to stop Aaron Donald, but I feel like he can maybe slow him down a little bit and just kind of match quickness for quickness. They're both very freaky athletes. Again, I don't expect the Bears offense to go off, but I have more confidence in Chicago limiting LA than I do in LA limiting Chicago. And in the end, I do feel like the Bears somehow, late in the fourth quarter, they're going to be in a position to kick a game-winning field goal, and they're going to do that and pull out like maybe a narrow 3-point victory. Either way, this game is going to be close, but just because it's in Chicago and because of how the Bears defense matches up with LA, and if they have their starting quarterback back, I do feel very good about that matchup. There's a lot of ifs, so you do have to check injury reports before this game, but I feel really, really strongly about it. So yeah, put me down for the Bears in that one. And let's move on to our last game of the week. Again, another huge game in the NFC. This one more about, wild card seeding than potentially playoff bye seeding. And that's the Vikings going to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Seattle is favored by 3.5. Again, it's another close game in the NFC. Personally, I feel pretty good about Seattle in this game. Just kind of looking at how the Vikings offense operates, they really can't block anybody up front. They've struggled to run block and pass protect all year long, and were it not for their incredible, just truly incredible skill position talent with Thielen and Diggs and Cook when he's healthy and Rudolph at tight end, and Kirk Cousins isn't a bad quarterback either. If it weren't for that, like, their offense would literally not move the ball because their offensive line is so bad. And so when I look at this game's in Seattle, the Seahawks defensive front is better than people think. Even without KJ Wright on the field, they are better than people think. I don't think that Minnesota can block them. And if you can't block them and you can't run the ball with Dalvin Cook, I think you're going to struggle, regardless of whoever your receivers are outside. Regardless of how good your quarterback is. If you can't block somebody and you're on the road in a very crucial December football game, like, it all starts up front. As the months get colder, the trenches become more important, and Seattle, I think, is going to win the trenches on both sides of the ball. Their offensive line has been pushing people around like crazy since probably, week 3 or 4 of the season. They've really improved in run blocking to the point where they're probably the best rushing offense in the league. I feel like Minnesota's linebackers are not as good as they used to be in terms of Kendricks and Barr. I feel like they used to handle weapons in space underneath a lot better than they are now. So I feel like Minnesota's defense is more vulnerable than ever to kind of, maybe check downs over the middle and trying to get some yards after catch with running backs. Like, that absolutely killed them against New England last week. And same thing goes for tight ends. I feel like they haven't matched up as well against tight ends as of late because of that. Pretty much the only guy that I really trust on that defense to cover running backs and tight ends in space is Harrison Smith, and he can't be everywhere at once. So, and not to mention the fact that Minnesota's defense is also, even if everybody's playing, they're playing through injuries. Like, it's a pretty banged up unit overall. So when I look at the formula for this game, Minnesota can't block Seattle. They haven't been able to run the ball all year long. It's on the road in one of the most hostile environments in the league. Seattle's defensive front has been playing great as of late. They've run the ball really well for like the last 2 months, and they have some weapons that I feel like can expose these linebackers in space. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for me to bet the Seahawks on the over at 3.5. Also, you'll notice a stat that I put on the screen there of how, essentially both teams, as of late, if you bet the over on both teams, especially when the Vikings are on the road and when the Seahawks are at home, you're going to win the over. So I do think you should bet the over in this game. Because there's going to be a lot more points scored than maybe people expected. But yes, overall, I do feel like the Seahawks are probably going to win by probably a touchdown and not a field goal. I think they'll win either way, but I think the margin of victory is going to be more than people expect in this game. Seattle is a damn good team. They are a really, really damn good team, and I think they're going to be a problem whenever they get in the playoffs. I think they're a threat to... even if they're going on the road, I think they're a threat to kind of take down probably some of the big dogs in the conference. They're a really, really dangerous team. So yeah, that'll wrap it up for me. Just as a recap, I'm betting the Cowboys to cover -3.5 at home. I'm betting the Bears to cover +3 at home as well. Solely reliant on if Mitchell Trubisky is playing, by the way. So again, check that injury report before you bet on that game. And I am also betting the Seahawks to cover -3.5 at home. So yeah, lots of huge games in the NFC this weekend. Really, really big for playoff implications. And if you do want to kind of get in on these and maybe bet on some of these games, make some money on the side while you're watching them and seeing who's taking the driver's seat for playoff spots, head to the link in the description below. Go to MyBookie, enter promo code Brett. When you sign up and deposit, you can get up to a 50% deposit bonus when you sign up, which basically just gives you 50% extra money in terms of credits that you can use on the site to bet. So it's really just free bets. Whatever you win with those bets with credits, you just get back as money. So you get free money that you can turn into more free money. It's the best deal you're going to find, especially if you're going to be betting on these games anyway. There's a lot of really juicy lines. So I do highly encourage you guys to bet on these because you can make some pretty decent money on all of these games, really. So again, thank you guys for watching. I'll be back tomorrow, I believe, maybe the day after. It won't be later than Saturday morning in terms of a full Film Room episode coming out. And then I'll have another Film Room episode next week and more picks against the spread next week. So again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the support. I'll be back soon. Later.